As we enter the last quarter of 2010, we are going to begin to see the production of oil and gas in this country. There are many organizations that are concerned and want to be sure that the people of this country will benefit from the resource, that we will see social development. One of those organizations is ISODEC. It's an NGO that we're all quite familiar with, and we'll be looking to find out exactly where they fit into all of this. Do they have a role? Are they on track? And what is their view on oil and gas? Steve Manteaw, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Steve, you're the campaign coordinator for ISODEC.
Yes.
Tell us, what does that mean, by the way, that you're the campaign coordinator?
Well, first, ISODEC is a rights-based policy research and advocacy organization. We kind of aim at influencing policy to the benefit of marginalized social groups in our society.
So your job is to promote that cause, more
exactly.
or less, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Your job is to promote that cause.
So I coordinate all those campaigns. Well, we've made a few inroads into influencing policy to favor the constituencies that we represent.
These are?
Particularly in the area of water privatization. You remember very well.
That's a pet project for ISODEC.
Well, perhaps, yes, but then we came from somewhere, because ISODEC in the 80s, through the 90s, was providing rural water in this country. So we did not really jump into the fray from nowhere. We have some background in water provisioning.
Why did you stop that?
We stopped that because after a while we thought there was a need to really engage with policy, because that was direct service delivery. We needed to engage in policy and begin to ask the questions as to why people do not have water.
You do the talking and forget the action?
Not really. No, the experience from the action influences the talk.
But you could have done both, eh?
Yes, we could have done both. Resources.
That's what they call put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. But you see, resources are quite limited, and you need to actually be able to determine for yourself where you make the greatest impact, and that's where you put your money. And we think that if we're able to influence policy, there's a way in which we can change things in this country for the better.
Every time I meet somebody from an organization like yours, I'm curious about something. You know, sometimes people think that you are just there to oppose, quote unquote. You know, I mean, there is value, but, you know, really, in the end, if you are not opposing, then there's no need for you to be there. So there are times where, when matters really do not require a certain attitude, you just take that on. What would you say to that?
That is far from the fact. In fact, I pride myself in actually making a point of the fact that I represented the Ministry of Finance on one of the board meetings of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. I'm civil society, and if I could be asked to represent the government of Ghana,
and the government asked that you represent
exactly.
So you are on the board of EITI.
Currently, not at the yet. I represent civil society on the steering committee of the EITI. But then again, I'm talking about the international governing board for EITI globally, and Ghana actually sits on the board. And at one time, I was asked by government to represent Ghana on the board at a board meeting. It actually speaks volumes about the fact that government recognizes some contribution, positive contribution that we make to shaping policy in this country.
You know, the extractive industry initiative and so on, and all these organizations, even now, when you speak to government and you say, how are you going to fight corruption, the minute you hear people say, oh, we are going to subscribe to EITI and so on. You know, and I have to say to you, sometimes I just wonder, you know, you think, so you subscribe to EITI, and so that solves the problem?
That's a very large extent.
How? Tell me how.
David, let me tell you one point, one very, very useful lessons from EITI implementation in Ghana. For a very long period, over the period for which we did the EITI audit, it was determined by the finance that companies were not paying capital gain tax. You know, there's a law in this country which requires companies to pay tax on profits they make when they sell their concessions to third parties. Over the period, companies were not paying. Now, EITI has been able to establish...
What companies are these? Are these like mining? Is it
mining companies, I mean. Yeah, mining companies, okay. Yes. And
that's another area of your specialization.
Exactly.
Okay, sorry.
It's the extractive sector generally.
Absolutely.
So, exactly. And the reason for this is that the Internal Revenue Service, which has responsibility for collecting the taxes, and the regulatory body, which is the Minerals Commission, were not exchanging information. And therefore, whenever a tax opportunity is created because companies have been sold to third parties, the Internal Revenue Service was no position to actually apprise itself of this fact.
Wow.
And so the monies were not collected. Yeah. And this came to light as a result of EITI audits. And so there's a way in which EITI has helped us identify systemic weaknesses.
In an important way.
Yeah, exactly.
So to the point where would you say that if we were to subscribe, you know, to EIT, I'm talking about the oil and gas industry, yeah. I mean, if that move was made, do you agree that once that move is made, we are on the path to stopping, controlling corruption?
Certainly, and it's not a matter of Ghana deciding to subscribe to EITI in the oil sector. Ghana has to, because EITI as a voluntary initiative was actually launched in Johannesburg in the year 2002. And Ghana was one of the first countries that acceded to the EITI. And we have been implementing EITI in the mineral sector. And the EITI principles and criteria requires that all substantive sectors of the national economy, that's the extractive sectors, are subjected to EITI. EITI is about transparency and accountability in the way natural resource revenues are generated and managed.
The gold mining sector is not, as you know, in this country, it's obvious that they have a lot of criticism for it. And I'm sure it's subscribed to the EITI for years. It didn't make any difference, really? Or is there a reason? Can you tell me how it's been helpful to the gold mining industry?
I guess you are aware that the government in the 2010 budget announced increases in mineral royalty from 3% to 6% to a fixed rate of 6%. This is a result of EITI findings, because we discovered in the EITI audit that over the period, companies stuck to paying the base rate, which is 3%. Whereas the royalty is a range between 3% and 6%, and you move up the ladder on the basis of your profitability. Yeah. Now, in an era where gold prices have risen to a record high of about $1,118 per ounce, from about $400 per ounce in about 5 years ago, companies persist in paying 3%.
Whose fault?
Well, whose fault?
Don't worry, Steve, think about it. I just want us to...
system.
Absolutely. I mean, I just want to talk about this for a minute. I mean, so if you were not there, must you be there for this to happen?
Yeah,
do you see what I mean?
Certainly,
yes.
No,
it's good that because EIT is there, actually happens. But I'm saying that, wouldn't it be wonderful if this could happen even without that? Do you see what I'm saying? That we don't need...
But things don't happen automatically. You see, there's this thing called social contract, whereas, because we can all not be in parliament, all the 20 million Ghanaians cannot be in parliament, we elect people to go and make decisions on our behalf. But in doing that, we do not really resign ourselves, sit back and watch them. We need to play a watchdog role and make sure that our interest is being advanced in the scheme of things. And, and this is wherein lies the role of ISODEC, to ensure that the citizens don't get shortchanged by the political decision making.
Better than cream cheese and bagels, better than honey on bread, better than champagne and pretzels, better than breakfast in bed, better than chili rellenos, better than chocolate eclairs, better than hothouse tomatoes, better than fresh bartlett pears, better than dining a la carte or simply gastronomic art, better than anything except being in love. So much better, better than anything.
Learn seriously, play seriously, win seriously, work seriously, relax seriously, invest seriously, smile seriously, love seriously, dream seriously, live seriously, stay connected wherever. Serious speed, serious service, serious savings. iBurst Africa, serious internet.